Right, let's have a look at some more advanced features of WordPress and the Avada theme. In particular, we're going to work, or at least continue to work, on the site that we built in the previous module. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to point out something that I've changed. You notice the spacing has slightly changed in the text area in this part of the grid on the left-hand side here. I've pushed it up so it lines up on the left-hand side and put a little bit more spacing on the right. I've done the same with this one here. I've left this one as it was in the previous module, just so I can show you how I've done that. Okay, so let's go in and edit this page. And we'll move down to the grid and the bottom left-hand section of that grid. So what I've done is I've gone in and edited the column itself. I've gone into design and I've changed the percentages that I've been using here. I've basically removed the one that controls the spacing on the left, what would be the left-hand side, and I have increased, actually I'm going to have that probably around the wrong way. I think that one needs to go in 8%. These arrows are a little bit misleading in terms of you have to get your head around which one does what. So this one here I think is actually indicating the spacing from the left-hand side, and this one the spacing to the right, so therefore next to the image. Let's just save that and update it and see if that's got it on the correct side. Even now, even having done this for a number of years, I get it round the wrong way quite often. But it's not a big deal, it's just a case of going back into it and switching it around. Okay, so let's have a look. I'm going to refresh this page and then we'll just have a look to see if it's worked. Yes, it's worked. So that's sort of lined up with the left-hand side there, a bit of spacing on the right next to the image. So that's just tidied it up a little bit from the way that we had it in the previous module. The other thing I'll point out here, you'll notice this image is slightly different size to this image and this image. Now, if you did want a consistent size to those images, the easiest way of doing it is to make sure that those three images are an identical size before you upload them, because it's the image that's driving the height of this particular section. Basically because we've got it set to be set to equal heights and to center, then that height itself is driven by the largest element within that row. So the largest element is the image. This image is actually a little bit smaller than the colored one above it. But if I'd made them all the same size, then they would all be a consistent size. So that's just a little bit of information that you can have a play around with and see how changing the image sizes makes a difference. Now, the other thing I want to show you is how you can move content around. Once you start to build the page structure, it's actually really easy to move things around. Now, I have a feeling that it might look quite nice for this colored image to be the center one, and for this things to do section to move up to the top. So let's go back to edit the page and let's see how easy it is to do that. So what I'm going to do is, because I've got these in separate containers, I can pick up and drag the entire container. So let's just do that. I'm just going to hold the mouse onto it, pick it up, drag it, then update it, and refresh the page. Now we should see that the black and white image has moved to the top. There we go, and we've got the colored image in the middle. Now, of course, this one's around the wrong way. Or at least the bottom one is around the wrong way from the point of view of maintaining that sort of consistency of layout. So let's just go back to edit the page, and then we're just going to drag those columns left to right, or right to left, whichever way around you prefer. Okay, now of course this text, let's just go in and edit the text and edit the design. This 8% is now going to be on the wrong side. So I just need to move it across to put the spacing on the other side, so the spacing is here rather than on the right hand side. Now we can just go back and refresh that page. Okay, so there we go. Right, this is building nicely. What we're going to look at now is something called menu anchors. That's because very often when you build a page like this sort of single page layout, it's very nice to provide some navigation to get to the sections within the page. So I'm going to create 3 menu anchors, and I'm going to give them names relating to these various sections. So things to do, places to stay, experience. So let's go back in and edit the page. So first of all, I'm going to put the menu anchor on the page. So I'm going to click on Element, and I'm going to find Menu Anchor. There it is. And I'm going to call this one Things. And then I'm just going to put it above the text. Then I'm going to duplicate this or clone. I'm going to drag it down to Places to Stay. And then I'm going to edit it and call it Places. Then I'm going to do the same again, clone it, drag it down, edit it, and call it Experience. Experience. Now it's really important that the spelling of this is identical to the menu item that you subsequently create to get to it. If it's misspelt, it doesn't actually matter as long as you misspell it in the menu as well. But just make sure that they are identical, otherwise it will not work. Okay, so we'll just refresh the page and see if that's made any difference at all, and hopefully you'll see that it's made no difference at all to the layout, because all we've done is we've put an anchor on the page which allows us to navigate to the section where the anchor point has been placed. So now what we have to do is go to Appearance and Menus. I'm just going to copy the URL so I've got it in the clipboard, because we're going to create what's called a custom link in order to get to those sections. Okay, the page is still loading, still saving. Okay, so now we've got our menu. So now I'm going to go down to this section here called Custom Links, and I'm going to paste in that URL, and then I'm going to use the hash symbol. Now when I press the hash symbol here, I think my screen is going to, or at least the browser is going to shrink. It's just for some reason it does that. There's some function in my browser that causes it to shrink, but I'll just then put it back. There we go. So just drag it back. So now I've got the hash symbol in there, and we type in things. Now I'm just going to copy that whole URL so I don't have to go through the shrinkage again. So now we're going to type in the link text, so things to do, and add it to the menu. I just need to remind myself, places and experience, wasn't it? Okay, so now we've got things to do, and then I'll paste that in again and create the places to go, or places to stay, sorry, places to stay, so I can go back in and just edit that there, places to stay, and experience, add to menu. Okay, so we'll just save that menu. Now if I go back and refresh the page, we'll see some new menu items added into the navigation. There they are. Okay, so now if I click on places to stay, for instance, it's going to take me to this section, directly to it, and I can navigate through to the various sections on the page like that. So that's how menu anchors work. You can have a play around with those and see how you can use them in your own projects. Now let's have a look at putting some additional elements on the page. Now I've decided I don't really like this image, very much as a background. So let me go in and edit the container, go to the background, edit the image, and I've prepared a slightly different image. So Alaska map, insert, save, update. Okay, let's go and refresh that. Okay, so there it is. You can't see it very well because I've got that white overlay on it. So, but what I want to do now is I'm going to create this, I'm going to make this what's called a parallax image. That means the image is going to seemingly move behind the text. Now, on a parallax image, the white overlay is not going to work anyway, so that can be removed. In fact, you don't have to remove it, it just simply will not work. So if you leave it in place, it'll just not work. But let's just clear it anyway. And in the container background section, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll come to this area that says background parallax. Let's just change it to up. So it's saying that it's going to move up on a desktop and a mobile device. So this will work on a mobile device as well. So that's now set, and I'm going to update it and refresh the page. And let's see what that's actually done. Okay, so now we see we've got this different image in here, which is a map. Now if I scroll up and down, you'll see that the image itself is moving slightly underneath the text. So we're starting to introduce a little bit of animation into our website, and you can use that to great effect at various areas of the site. So have a good play around with that. There are various settings. Let's just go back into it quickly. You can set the position of the background, the parallax speed, which will obviously influence the way that the image moves at the background. You can even put a video background in there as well via these links here. So have a good look at that and play around and see how you can use that in your project. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put just a few more images in here. I just want to show you how the gallery feature works within, or at least the gallery element works within Avada. So I'm going to put some images between this bottom image of the bear here and the image of the Aurora Borealis. So let's just go in to that section on the page. So here we are, here's the image of the bear, and this is the Aurora Borealis image. So we just want to insert a container in here. So I'm just going to click the container icon, make it a full width row, and then I'm going to click on the element icon and find gallery. Okay, and then I'm going to select a number of images because I want to show 8 images in here, which obviously I've already prepared. So I'm going to choose my 8 images. I've made them all an identical size. It's not important to do that in terms of displaying the grid of the images, because they will all show as the same size if you set it to be the case. But if you want to use something called the lightbox, which is when the user clicks on it, it opens in a bigger version, then it's much nicer to have them all the same size, because then the images themselves don't jump around on the screen. Okay, so that's the 8 images uploaded. So we'll say create new gallery and insert the gallery. And I'm going to make it a grid. Well, it's already set as a grid actually by default. You could actually set it to be masonry, and I suggest you do that just to see what it actually does. But it basically lays out the images in a slightly different way. Masonry is used in particular if you're using a mixture of landscape and portrait orientation images. The masonry effect can be quite nice. Okay, so let's just refresh the page and see what that's done. There's a little bit more work to do on it, but I just want to see stage by stage how the page is building as a result of what we're doing. Okay, so let me just check the size of this 1600 by 1100, okay. Okay, that's still saving. Okay, so there we are. Okay, so what you'll see here is that, oh, sorry, I think I've pressed refresh again. Okay, there we are. Okay, so what you'll see here is that we have our 8 images. They are in 3 columns. Now, obviously, we want to try and make it so it's a bit more balanced. So I'm going to set it into 4 columns. You'll also notice that it's in the grid, and I would like it to be all the way across the width of the browser. So let's just go in and edit that element again and make those changes. Okay, so we've got the grid set up, we've got number of columns, so I'm just going to set that to 4. That will mean that we'll then have 2 rows of 4 images. We've also got some spacing here, so I'm going to remove that, so there's no spacing at all, 0, and save that and update. Hopefully this will save a little quicker this time. Yeah, okay, so now refresh. Now we should see that that's in 2 rows of 4. Okay, so that's a nicer balance, but it's still not stretched across the width of the browser. Now in order to do that, what we need to do is to change the container to show the interior content width at 100% and save. Update. Now if I refresh, there we are. Now it's 100% width, it will stretch, but we've got spacing left and right and top and bottom. So we need to remove some of the margins. So I think the margins that we're going to need to change are on the container. So let's go to the container and to design, and insert 0 margins and 0 padding everywhere. Save and update. And that should do the trick, although I think we may have to make one more change, but let's just see how that's worked out. Okay, there we go. So we've got the full width. We've removed the spacing on the top, so it's butting up nicely against the image of the bear, but we've still got this spacing underneath. Now the chances are that that is in the in the column itself. So let's just go in and edit the column, go to design, and just remove the margins and padding in the column as well. Save that, update it, and refresh the page, and hopefully that's now butting up against the 2 containers. Nice. Okay, so if I make my browser bigger, you see that all of the images just grow with the browser. Now if I click on one of these images, it now just gets bigger and opens in what's called the lightbox. Which is really nice. There's various options that you can set connected with the lightbox, and you do that in Avada theme options. But I think the default setup is actually pretty good. Now it could be that you don't want the lightbox to open when you click on these images. It could be that you just want to show these images and not have them clickable at all. So that's easily done. We can just go back to the gallery and scroll down to where it says Image Lightbox and select No. Save that, update, then we can just refresh the page, and now we cannot click. The images just are visible and they still grow nicely, but they are not clickable, so they will not open in the Lightbox. Now let's just have a look at this in the equivalent of a mobile view, which was I've got a setting on my browser which allows me to very quickly set my browser size to be something similar to a mobile. It's about 380 pixels wide. I've got it set. So you see that as the page builds, I need to start looking at it how it would look in a mobile, because there are various things that I might need to change and put a bit of spacing in here and there in order to make it look nicer on a mobile. Pretty much out of the box, it looks pretty good actually. There's just a few spacing issues, but these images here, they look lovely on a desktop, and they actually look lovely on a mobile as well. But let's, for the sake of argument, let's say that we don't want to show those images on a mobile. What we can do is we can go back and use something that I alluded to in one of the earlier modules. I'm going to click on the container, and you remember this section here, container visibility. I've got the option to show on a small screen, a medium screen, and a large screen, and by default that is set to show everywhere. Now if I didn't want to show this on a small screen, i.e. a mobile phone, but I did want to show it on a tablet and I did want to show it on a large desktop, I can just untick small screen. So I'll just click on it and it becomes grey instead of blue. Now if I save that and update that, and then we go back to the front end and just refresh it, I'll just refresh it again because I'm not sure if it had saved. Okay, so we should see that on the desktop we've got the images. Let's go to sort of a tablet size. So now we've still got the images on a tablet. But if I go down to mobile size, and just, you see it's gone. That's because I set it to hide it from a mobile view. So that's incredibly powerful. There are very few themes that I've come across that give you that functionality. There are some additional plugins that you might be able to buy to make it work, but they're usually sort of cobbled together, and they may or may not work with the theme that you're using. This is something inherent within the Avada theme that I found to be very, very powerful indeed, because you can show different views of different sections of your website and different views of your website on the devices that it's being viewed on. So a really, really useful little feature. And you can set that on a container, or you can even set it on an element within a container. Have a look around wherever you see that option. It will give you the facility to hide or show your content on a different device. Okay, so now let's look at perhaps creating a new page. I'm a great fan of consistency through a website, so although the content of one page will change from another, then the general sort of layout and presentation and look and feel of the site should have some sort of consistency. So very often what that means is if I wanted to create a new page, what I might do is just go to all pages and simply, I haven't got it turned on. Let me just go to the plugins first, and I'm going to turn on a plugin that I use called Duplicate Post. While I'm here, I'm also going to turn on some plugins connected to the contact form, because I'm going to show you how to use that in a second. So I've just selected 3 plugins there, and I'm going to activate them all at once. I could just activate each one individually, but there's an easier way of doing it all at once. Okay, so all those 3 plugins are now activated. So now if I go back to Pages, I get an extra option to clone or create a new draft of the home page. Now clone and new draft are effectively doing the same thing, but if I click new draft, it will open the page, whereas clone, it will just copy it and it'll be visible in this view. Okay, so that's created that page. I'm going to rename it to be called Contact, and then I'm going to publish it. Now what should happen is the permalink will change to say Contact, If it doesn't, you may just have to go in and edit it to change it, but it should, once you've created the new draft and saved it for the first time, it should change the permalink according to the title that you've given it, or the page name. So now if we refresh, we've got a new menu button appeared called Contact, and if I click on that, it will take me to the contact page. Now the contact page at the moment is identical to the home page, so let me now just go in and make some changes. So let's see what we're going to take out. I want to keep the header, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the header image. So let's change it, instead of the snowy road, we'll change it to one of these other images, perhaps the whale. Okay, I'll get rid of this section, so I'm going to delete that, 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 and update it. So now let's refresh. So we're looking at the contact page now, not the home page. Okay, so I've got a different image. I've still got all of my 8 images underneath there. Whether I keep those in or not, I don't know. But what I want to do is just put a contact form in. Now I'm going to reduce the size of these spaces, because I would prefer the header image on the internal pages not to be quite so big. There we are, so that's reduced that a little bit. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a section in between the header image here and these 8 images underneath. So I'm going to create a new container, and I'm going to make it half and half. Sorry, I'm going to make it 1/3, 2/3. Okay, so I split that row into a 1/3 column and a 2/3 column. Then I'm going to add a bit of text in here and just type in the word contact. Perhaps make that H2 and update. So refresh that. Now we should see a new section appeared. There it is. Okay, contact. So now what I'm going to do is, over on the right hand side here, I'm going to put a contact form. So let's just go back to our WordPress dashboard. Having activated the Contact Form 7 plugin, we now have a form which is in there by default. So if I click on Edit, we'll see that this form contains a field to capture a name, an email address, a subject, and a message. So that's fine. Now this code here is what's called the shortcode to this form. So I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to go back to my Edit Contact page. I'm going to go to the section that I've created to put this form into, and I'm going to click on the element icon within the 2/3 column. Then I'm going to use this component called Code Block. So I click on that, and I'm going to paste the contact form code in there. You can rename these contact forms, incidentally, and the shortcode will change accordingly, but it's not necessarily important to do so unless you have a number of contact forms on your site that you want to identify easily. Okay, so if we now refresh that, we see that we've got a perfectly acceptable contact form. Your name, your email, subject, message, and a send icon. Now that's all fine. There's a little bit more setup to do in order to make that form actually work. And very often what I do is I customize the contact forms. So instead of in one column, some of these fields are in 2 columns, or even 3. Now I've got a piece of code that is saved, obviously, because I use it all the time, and I'm going to copy that. This will be in the resources as usual, and then I'm going to go back to the contact form and I'm going to overwrite all of this default form data, okay, with the code that I use. Now what this code is doing is it's creating some columns within the form itself. So if I now click Save and I refresh this page now, you'll see that the form itself is still there, but it's changed in terms of the formatting of it. Okay, so now I've got name, subject, phone number, email address and message. So the top two sections are in columns, next line is in columns, and then I've got one column for the message area. Then I've got some additional text which relates to the data protection rules that have recently come in. I've also got a tick box that needs to be ticked in order to indicate that they're accepting these terms and accepting the privacy policy. I would have to create a link to the privacy policy in order to show that privacy policy, and then the form could be submitted. Okay, so there's a little bit more work to do on the contact form in order to make it work. You'll notice that if I go back to the contact form, we've got some additional tabs here. So we've got the form itself, which is the code that dictates how this form looks at the front end. Then we've got a mail tab, and this will then this is where you configure where the form will actually be sent. So this is going to be sent to one of my email addresses. The from field, what I tend to do is I write do not reply at, and then what you want to do is you use the domain name that is being used for the website. Otherwise it will not validate properly. It needs to be sent from the domain name relating to the website. The subject you can leave as is if you like. Reply to, leave as is. Now the message body, this is the code that that pulls out the form content as it gets filled in and then arrives to you in an email. Now you'll notice that some of these are dark, and that's because these fields appear on the form itself, but they do not appear in the message body that is going to be sent to you. So even if somebody filled in their phone number, you wouldn't get it because the phone number is not included in your message body. So if we were just to put that in now, we could also have GDPR acceptance, and website URL is not necessary because that is something that relates to something called Honeypot, which if we go back to the form, you'll notice that I've got a field here called Honeypot. Now what that does is it eliminates, well, it doesn't eliminate, but it reduces the amount of spam that you're likely to get through the form by putting a hidden field on the form, and if that field gets filled in, then it's smart enough to know that it's likely that it's a computer filling in the form rather than a human being, and therefore will not allow the form to be submitted. If you do a search for Contact Form 7 Honeypot, read the information about that and you'll see how that actually works. But I use that kind of by default these days.